All right, good morning. Today we will have lesson 7.2, solving inequalities using multiplication and division. So write down the title. Basically, here are some notes here about properties of inequality. When you multiply or divide each side of an inequality by a positive number, you produce an equivalent inequality. However, and this is the big difference right here in this particular lesson, so make sure you have this part written down. When you multiply or divide each side of an inequality by a negative number, you have to reverse the direction of the inequality symbol in order to produce an equivalent inequality. So what you're going to do when you multiply or divide by a negative number with inequalities is you have to flip-flop the inequality sign. And that is the key component of this lesson. The rest of the notes is just examples, and there's 13 of them, and we'll just try to go through them as quickly as possible so that you understand, but it's not too laborious. Okay, we'll start with example 1. Here, write the inequality down. We're going to solve for x and then graph it. So, in order to solve this, we need to multiply both sides of the inequality by the denominator, which is 4 over 1 here, and then do the same thing to the other side, which is 4 there. There's my line. So this is 4 over 1. You would cross cancel that. You get x is less than negative 20. Negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. In order to graph it, we're going to use an open circle, and then we have negative 20, and then the x is less than, so you're going to go to the left. Example 2, we have also 12 is greater than or equal to d over 12. So we're going to multiply both sides by the denominator so that it cancels. And this cancels out, so I have d is less than or equal to 144. And I can switch this around if you would like. Put d on the left. If you change d on the left, that means you have to reverse the sign there. And d is less than 144. So now I have it's less than or equal to, so that means I have a closed circle of 144, and I'm going to go to the left because that's the direction that's less than 144. Example 3 is a little different because now we're dealing with a negative 4 in the denominator. So write the problem down. So now instead of multiplying by a positive 4, we're going to multiply by a negative 4 over 1, and then we're going to multiply that by a negative 4. Now, when I multiply by a negative or divide by a negative, I have to reverse the inequality. So instead of c less than, we're going to flip-flop it, and then negative times a negative, 4 times 15 is a positive 60. So remember to flip-flop anytime you're multiplying by a negative number. And then if I want to rewrite this so that my variable is on the left, I could do c, and then I flip-flop it again, so c is greater than 60. Or you can just leave it like this. Either way will work. So c is greater than 60. This also says that c is greater than 60. And so I have an open circle. I have 60, and that direction is greater than. All right, let's do some more. Okay, on the next example, you have 4f is greater than or equal to a negative 7. All we have to do now is divide by the number that's with the variable, the 4. So I get f is greater than or equal to a negative 7/4, which is also a negative 1 3/4. So now greater than or equal to would be a closed circle, and a negative 1 3/4 would go there, and then I would graph greater than. On this particular problem, the negative 7 was there, but we didn't divide or multiply by a negative 7, so don't let that confuse you. That's why we didn't flip-flop the sign. It's only when you divide or multiply by a negative. All right, let's look at example 5. 7/8x is less than or equal to negative 10. In order to solve this, we can divide both sides by 7/8. So divide by 7/8. Anything divided by itself is 1, so I have x is less than or equal to, and then I would take a negative 10 and divide it by 7/8. So we'll continue that. So negative 10 divided by 7/8 is negative 10 over 1 times the reciprocal, which is 8/7. So I would end up getting negative 80 over 7. So let's rewrite this. So we would get a negative 11, because 7 times 11 is 77, and 3/7. So x is less than or equal to a negative 11 and 3/7. So less than or equal to means I have a closed circle, negative 11 and 3/7, and that's the direction x is less than or equal to. So we have to remember how to do our fractions, don't we, on these? All right, number 6 and 7. Now number 6, you have negative 9z is greater than a negative 36. So you would divide both sides by a negative. Uh-oh, that was our rule. So we're dividing by a negative. So that means we're going to flip-flop the signs. So the negative 9 goes away. There's my z. So now z is less than a positive 4. So less than is an open circle. There's a 4, and there's my graph. All right, you can try number 7 on your own. Notice you're not dividing by a negative. You're dividing by a positive. So you can pause this and see if you get it right, or you can just follow along. G is greater than, bring your symbol down, a negative 2.1. So if you want to rewrite that, you can. You could put the G on the left, then flip the sign so that, notice the open side is with the G, and then you just graph it. Greater than to the right, less than to the left. Okay, a few more practice problems. I have 3 is greater than or equal to k over negative 6. In order to solve, I'm going to multiply both sides by a negative 6. That means I have to reverse the inequality. So I have k stays on the right, and I get a negative 18. And so k is greater than or equal to a negative 18. I can flip it around if I want, just to make it easier to graph. All right, that's not a very pretty graph. It really should be better than that. All right, next one. We're going to multiply, we're multiplying by a negative 3/5. That means we need to divide by a negative 3/5 on both sides. So divide by a negative 3/5. This cancels out. Because I divided by a negative, I have to flip the inequality. And now I have a negative 21 divided by negative 3/5. And so let's do that. Negative 21 over 1 times a negative 5/3. Multiply by the reciprocal, cross reduce, and I get a positive 35. So x is greater than or equal to positive 35. Graphing it with a closed circle, writing your number, which direction is greater than, be this direction, to the right. Okay, let's see what else we can practice. We have example 10. Negative 0.2b is greater than 0.04. Divide both sides by a negative. That should be your clue that we are going to do what? We're going to flip. So I have b is less than, and now I have to divide 0.04 divided by a negative 0.2. Move your decimal, move your decimal. So that means 2 goes into 4 2 times. So my answer is going to be a negative 2/10. So I've got an open symbol negative 0.2, and b is less than 2/10, negative 2/10. Okay, we're just going to do these last two problems. These are word problems, so now you have to be able to write your inequality solving graph. So it says the product of y and negative 5, that means we're going to multiply them together, is less than 45. Now I solve. So divide by a negative 5. So I have to flip the inequality because I divided by a negative. So I get y is greater than a negative 9, open symbol or circle. Y is greater than, so I go to the right. All right, last problem. The quotient of 169 and r. So quotient means we're going to divide, and we have to divide in this order. So we're going to take 169. Quotient of 169 and r looks like that. 169 divided by r is greater than or equal to 13. Now I have to multiply both sides by r. So this by r and that by r. The r cancels and I get 169 is greater than or equal to 13r. And now I have to divide by 13. So 169 divided by 13, I believe, is 13. So I have an r on the right, and then I have a symbol. Let me do that again. I have an r on the right. My symbol looks like that, 13. Now if I want to reverse that, I could put r less than or equal to 13. So then I put a little symbol here, closed circle, with 13, and r is less than or equal to 13. And if you just heard a little purring, that is my kitty cat. So I'll have to show you my new kitty cat. He just woke up from his nap and he wants to be petted. So it's time for me to go. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you soon.